All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics. Today is Saturday, July 24th, 2021, and this is your daily tropical update. We continue to focus on Invest 90L here this afternoon off the coast of Daytona Beach, Florida. The system still kind of churning out there. Hasn't really moved much in the last 24 hours. Still kind of caught up in this old frontal boundary here and has not really made a whole lot of progress. Is a little better organized today, so we're going to take a look at that. Otherwise, though, real quick, is looking at the rest of the Atlantic Basin. It is quiet, guys. There is still not a whole lot going on. Thankfully, the African easterly wave activity is still pretty limited, and the rest of the basin, not a whole lot going on. There's one little disturbance here, but it looks like the Saharan dust is going to keep that in check. I think there's a little mesoscale kind of rotation here in the Gulf of Mexico, but right now I wouldn't expect that to develop into anything. But overall, guys, quiet Atlantic Basin besides 90L, which we're going to go ahead and get right into. So as we zoom in here this afternoon on the satellite presentation 90L, we can see still a very sheared, lopsided storm. We have a lot of thunderstorm activity on the east side of the storm, but this is all off the center of the storm, which is actually right about here today. You can see the naked swirl, the low-level clouds pretty clearly, and this is thanks to a lot of dry air kind of fighting with the storm in this northeast wind shear that is kind of keeping thunderstorms from attempting to wrap around the eye or the center of the storm. Really, not really an eye yet, but you can see these thunderstorms trying to make that loop up around the center, but they're not having a lot of luck as they get into this region where that shear and the drier air is just kind of choking off the thunderstorms, if you will. So 90L is still a somewhat disorganized storm, but it is presenting a little better presentation than yesterday. At least it has a circulation center now. Yesterday, this was more of like an open trough, and now you actually have the closed nature of it. So it is progressing a little bit. This afternoon, the Hurricane Center gives us a 60% chance to develop in the next 5 days. A Hurricane Hunter aircraft currently investigating the storm. I wanted to wait for their full coverage, but I got to go ahead and get this recorded. I got some plans here this afternoon, so unfortunately can't wait around for the full report, but we do have an earlier ASCAT pass from the satellite wind data, and this does show probably what the hurricane hunters are going to find. Again, your low-level center somewhere right here. Those are the winds off to the east, where we're observing winds of around 30 or so knots, which is about 35 miles an hour, so close to that tropical storm threshold, but still in that tropical depression stage. If this was actually wrapping any sort of activity around the eye, we would probably go ahead and classify it as a tropical depression, but with this open swirl of a center, not really classifiable yet as a tropical depression. Currently, for the hurricane models, not a lot of help yet. Models really aren't seeing the storm very well, and this is very common when we have a weak, undeveloped storm. We just simply, our models don't know what the hell to do with it until we get some more guidance and the storm actually develops into something that we can like really watch. So, kind of showing that squish spider, if you will, mentality. But we do believe this is probably going to move generally back to the south and then the west over the next couple of days. Intensity models also not really buying much in the way of the storm. The vast majority of them are below tropical storm strength for most of the journey here. The ships model is going all the way up to category 1, but the ships has not been very good this year. I don't know what this model is doing, but we're just going to ignore that little guy because he's kind of out to lunch. As far as 90L's good news for it is that it is still over warm water. The Gulf Stream water is still very warm right now. The Gulf Stream moving up, of course, the coast of Florida and the southeast and then out this way. This water temperature is 28, 29 degrees Celsius. Not only is that about mid to upper 80s in terms of Fahrenheit, but that's also very deep water. So even if 90L is just sitting there, it's not going to upwell cool water. It's going to still have that warm water to work with. So it's got fuel. But the bad news for 90L is, again, that dry air and wind shear showing up very well on the GFS 700 to 400 millibar relative humidity and wind map here, where we have all these greens indicating that deeper tropical moisture and thunderstorm activity. And you can see off to the north as we kick this into the afternoon hours, this intensifying northeast flow over the storm, and all these browns indicating much drier air over what would be the center of the storm, which is right about here. So you have all the thunderstorms off to the right side, and you have this drier northeast flow on the other side that's not only imparting dry air, but it's also imparting that wind shear on the storm. So this is something that's going to deal with over the next couple of days. We go into Sunday, the flow becomes a little more out of the east, and this is probably what we're going to see. High pressure builds in over the Tennessee River Valley, and this is probably going to induce more of a clockwise flow over Florida, and this is probably going to push the low towards the Florida coastline. This also matches up well with the upper levels of the atmosphere, where again you have high pressure aloft, and you have this clockwise flow pushing more dry, pushing that air more to the east, and that's probably what's going to go ahead and push 90L back to the coastline. So it doesn't appear that 90L is going to have a great environment, even go into Monday, Sunday into Monday. I mean, by Monday, it kind of shows the storm more as a open trough and moisture across South Florida, but then drier air still near the storm. So right now we're not expecting a whole lot. The rainfall will probably be the biggest story with this storm, but really the totals aren't all that impressive when you look at the WPC's Weather Prediction Center's forecast. We're only showing generally about 2 to 3 inches of rain and a wide spread. I think what this is going to be is more of an enhancement of thunderstorms. You're going to see some really, really heavy rain at times because you're going to have that dry air in the mid-levels sort of mixing in, and dry air in the mid-levels can actually enhance thunderstorm activity and really enhance those updrafts, and is one of the keys for severe thunderstorms. So what you're probably going to see is some really strong, nasty thunderstorms across Central and South Florida Sunday, Monday, probably even into Tuesday, where you're going to get really heavy rainfall totals in some places, and then your neighbor 5 minutes down the road may not get but a quarter of what you got, or may get nothing at all. And that's, I think, the story. It's going to be a very steamy, hot, gross weekend. You're going to have a lot of these thunderstorms, but it's not going to be everywhere. And you can see really the Central Florida is the cutoff. As you go into North Florida, really light rainfall totals. And again, this matches up well with the GFS, where showing that drier air over North Florida, really keeping this thing in check. So, it looks like the rainfall totals mostly down to the south, where you have this more moist air to work with in the southern part of the state. This is also matched up with the GFS rainfall totals, again, showing generally, 2 to 3 inches at the most, but then these pockets of much heavier rain indicating where they think those thunderstorms are going to fire. And it looks like right now, South Florida, probably in the best case for that, and maybe even the Florida Keys. So definitely rainfall, probably the biggest and only real serious issue. The onshore flow, the counterclockwise flow of the low pressure system, you'll probably have some coastal flooding issues up here in Central and North Florida, some abnormally high tides for a couple days. Definitely rough surf rip currents are going to be a problem through the weekend and into next week. So right now, guys, just rainfall and basically surf impacts. If it kind of overachieves, we can still see potential tropical cyclone label, maybe a tropical storm label if it really goes up. I think Fred is the next one, and as this drifts to Florida into next week, we will have to watch it if it gets into the Gulf of Mexico and is even remotely held together, because there's also some pretty warm water over there, and if the conditions change a little bit, you never know what could happen. So keep a close eye on that. Let's go ahead and run around the rest of your topics, guys. In the Eastern Pacific, we do have one area that's trying to develop a 60% chance. This might be the remnants of a former storm from a few days ago. It is tracking somewhat towards Hawaii, but right now it looks like the cooler water of Hawaii will probably keep them safe from any impacts. This probably passes by to the south, and it's just a moisture surge. Could see some enhancement of showers and storms next week, but right now, not expecting this to be too serious. As we go to the Western Pacific, we have the Joint Typhoon Warning Center map, where we still have two storms to deal with. Typhoon In-fa today, now making its final approach to the eastern China coastline, kind of near Shanghai. The storm is not particularly impressive. It is a minimal typhoon, maximum sustained winds around 75 miles an hour, but it is a large, not a gigantic storm for out here, but it is a pretty decently sized storm, and it is not moving very fast. The Joint Typhoon Warning Center's forecast calling for a landfall tomorrow evening and near Shanghai, but then moving very little through the middle of next week. So you're going to have days of the storm just sitting near the coastline and drenching with them with a lot of rain. This will be yet another major weather and flooding disaster for China, who's had several flooding disasters and several tornado outbreaks this year. It's been a really rough year in China for weather-wise. We don't post about it a whole lot on the page, but it's been pretty rough out there. So this is just going to add to the problem. And you also have some flooding last week down there from Simpaka, so yet another onslaught of rainfall coming for China. And we also have a tropical storm in Partak here, back on the map, located a little closer to Japan. This storm definitely looks like it's wrapped up in some kind of mid-latitude system, like a finger of the jet stream or something. Definitely looks more hybrid in nature, but producing some nice thunderstorm activity. And this one's generally going to move off to the north and then eventually recurve back to the north and west. And was expected to impact Tokyo a little more directly, but new forecasts call for a bit more northerly shift in the track, and only a storm of about 45 to 55 miles an hour, so a kind of mid-grade tropical storm impacting Japan sometime next week. And it looks like Tokyo would be on the drier side of the storm, so some rainfall likely and some gusty winds likely, but it looks like the worst will definitely miss Tokyo, so not a big concern for them as it may have been a couple days ago when this was still forming. So, hey guys, what I got for you today on your tropical update. We'll keep a close watch on 90L and anything else that might pop up, but it looks like we'll mostly be quiet besides the storm through the end of the month in the Atlantic Basin. So that's what I got for you today. As always, thanks for watching and have a good one.